police were called to a shooting at the residence behind me here.
Police presence along this road. This is Park Lane Circle. It's the street that Drake lives on.
It ain't y'all go back to your hoods and tell your homies ceasefire. That's not what it was about.
Federal agents have officially tied Kendrick Lamar's inner circle to the 2024 shooting outside Drake's Toronto mansion. And now, whispers say J-Rock and Mob James have both been pulled in for questioning. And y'all, the details trickling out, they're the kind that can flip this whole Drake-Kendrick beef from music drama into something that smells like a federal case. The feds aren't moving on speculation, they're moving on receipts. Court filings show Drake's legal team already prying deep into Kendrick's personal life, demanding documents that could expose everything from domestic abuse allegations against Whitney Alford to the paternity of Kendrick's kids. But buried in those same filings is where it gets real messy. Dave Free, Kendrick's right-hand man, is named in the same breath as these domestic abuse claims and is now being quietly linked to movements around the night of the shooting. Now here's where it flips. The shooting didn't just happen in the middle of their lyrical war. It came 2 days after Kendrick dropped Not Like Us, the diss record with Drake's actual mansion on the cover. A track Drake claims was illegally boosted through bot farms tied to Interscope's own marketing team. And that alleged botting operation? The guy accused of running it is Kojo Mene Asamoah, someone Drake's lawyers had to hire private investigators to track down. But the deeper you dig, the more it's starting to look like this might not just be about fake streams or hurt egos. Because according to one Toronto police insider, the timing and method of the shooting line up perfectly with how certain West Coast connected crews send messages without ever stepping foot in your city. And here's the thing. One of the loudest voices weighing in on this is a man who knows that life better than most, Mob James. Mob James, who spent years inside some of the most feared sets in Compton, didn't mince words when asked about Drake stepping foot back in certain West Coast neighborhoods. He flat out said he doubted Drake could peacefully return, not because of his music, but because of the lingering bad blood that comes when lines get crossed in street politics. And in this case, we're not just talking bars on wax. We're talking a bullet in a man's chest outside Drake's $100 million Toronto estate just days after a diss record that made his home a cover photo.
I think Drake had a problem coming to Compton now.
Okay. It was.
Yeah.
Now, before anyone calls this a reach, Mob James wasn't out here making wild accusations, but he did hint that when celebrity beef spills into the streets, sometimes the players pulling strings aren't even the rappers themselves. It's the people around them, the ones without platinum plaques, but with connections that never made it to Spotify. While Mob James took the careful, almost OG-like approach, J-Rock decided to poke the bear publicly. The same day news broke about the shooting, J-Rock was online clowning Drake's fan base, calling him the 69 God, the same nickname Kendrick dropped in Not Like Us. He wasn't subtle about picking a side. And if you've been paying attention, J-Rock's loyalty to Kendrick isn't just about music. That TDE bond runs deep to the point where certain people now suspect his social media shade might have been a little more than friendly banter. But here's where it starts feeling less like a rap beef and more like chess. Because while J-Rock was making jokes, Drake's legal team was out here serving subpoenas to Kojo Mene Asamoah, the elusive marketing exec Drake believes was part of a botting campaign to inflate Not Like Us streams. And who sits right in that ecosystem? Dave Free, Kendrick's longtime partner at PG Lang. Now, federal investigators haven't gone public with any claims tying Dave Free or J-Rock directly to the shooting. But in private, word is they're being asked questions about movements, calls, and contacts in the days leading up to May 7th. And if you're wondering why the feds care so much about a hip-hop beef, well, let's just say they've been down this road before with rap crews, and it rarely ends with a press release and a handshake. The real question is, if they keep pulling on these threads, will they find something that turns this from artist versus artist into a RICO-level situation? So here's what we know, and this isn't coming from blogs, guessing in the dark. This is straight from Toronto police timelines and insider chatter. May 7th, 2024, 2 a.m., a vehicle rolls up near Drake's Bridle Path estate. The neighborhood is usually dead quiet at that hour. No engine revs, no yelling, just a slow, deliberate approach. A man steps out, fires a single round and hits Drake's on-duty security guard in the upper chest. The shooter's back in the vehicle in seconds and the car peels off. Police sources say the whole hit took less than 30 seconds from approach to exit. And that's important because that kind of precision isn't usually some random drunk with a gun. That's practiced. The victim, a longtime member of Drake's private security rotation, is rushed to the hospital for emergency surgery. No fatality, but the injury is serious enough that even seasoned investigators are calling it a targeted message. Now here's the wild part. 3 things stand out immediately. The cover art connection. Kendrick had just dropped Not Like Us, with a Google Maps screenshot of Drake's home on the cover. In the streets, that's not a coincidence. That's an address drop. Timing. The happens 2 days after that song hits, right in the middle of a public, ugly lyrical exchange between the 2 rappers. West Coast method. One law enforcement contact pointed out that the drive-by with a single high-value target is a move certain SoCal crews have used for years when sending a "stay in your lane" type warning. Now, Toronto PD still hasn't linked Kendrick's camp directly to this. They're being extremely careful with public statements. But behind the scenes, that's where things are moving. Because here's what I found. Federal agents are now cross-referencing phone pings and travel data from people tied to Dave Free, J Rock, and Mob James. It's all part of the same case where Drake is suing Universal Music Group over alleged botting for Not Like Us. And if you're wondering how a music streaming fraud claim crosses into a shooting investigation, that's where the plot thickens. The working theory? The same network allegedly used to push Kendrick's streaming numbers could also have had the ability or the contacts to orchestrate a hit from a distance. Now, this is where we move from diss tracks and bullets to boardrooms and billion-dollar leverage plays. Drake's lawsuit against Universal Music Group isn't just about hurt feelings over Not Like Us. It's a legal knife fight over whether UMG's own CEO, Lucian Grange, greenlit a campaign to push Kendrick's diss while his team was in contract talks with Drake. Drake's lawyers are pushing hard to subpoena Grange's emails and texts, claiming they'll prove UMG's marketing machine wasn't just promoting a song, it was actively trying to smear Drake's brand to get a better deal when his contract renewal came up. UMG is stonewalling, saying Grange had no meaningful involvement and calling Drake's case a face-saving move after losing the rap battle. But here's the angle that hasn't hit mainstream headlines yet. If those emails get unsealed, and if they show any coordination between Grange, PG Lang, or Kendrick's camp, that could open the door for prosecutors to argue conspiracy in a civil and criminal context, especially now that a violent incident is in the mix. And y'all, the reason this matters so much is because feds love patterns. They don't just look at a shooting in isolation, they look at motive, opportunity, and who benefits. If UMG's top exec was in contact with people in Kendrick's orbit before or after May 7th, it changes the entire temperature of the investigation. While the lawyers play chess in court, J Rock is still out here in the open, firing off tweets like, "Don't be mad at me, y'all, 69 God lost." On its own, that's trolling. But if you're a prosecutor trying to connect dots, public statements that taunt a rival right after a violent incident can be argued as proof of knowledge or involvement. This is why his name, along with Mob James, is now floating in the background of the federal questioning list, not as prime suspects, but as people who might have heard things, been around certain conversations, or can be used to map out Kendrick's protective circle. And here's the thing, once feds start bringing in people for informal talks, it's usually not just for background. They're testing reactions, checking body language, and seeing if the stories line up. Then there's Dave Free. On paper, he's PG Lang's co-founder, a creative mind behind Kendrick's rollout strategies. But to Drake's team, he's more than that. He's the guy they think holds the answers to both the domestic violence document requests and the timeline of movements around the shooting night. If Dave Free is subpoenaed and confirms travel, communications, or payments that overlap with either the botting allegations or any West Coast to Toronto connection, it could escalate this from a messy PR battle into something prosecutors can present to a grand jury. And just when you think it's all boardroom maneuvers and quiet subpoenas, there's another thread starting to pull tight, the possibility that the shooting was never meant to kill, only to send a warning Drake wouldn't be able to ignore. Mob James has been around long enough to know when something's not just random street noise. When he spoke on Drake and Kendrick's situation, he didn't outright say the shooting was connected, but his tone carried the kind of weight that made people listen twice. See, in the street world, there's a big difference between a hit and a message. A hit is meant to end someone. A message? that's meant to shake someone up, remind them that lines have been crossed, and make sure they think twice before taking the next step. That's exactly why some insiders believe the shooting outside Drake's estate wasn't meant to kill him or even his guard, but to show him just how close someone could get. One shot, one target. The security guard was hit once in the chest. No spray of bullets, no wild crossfire. That's not chaos, that's precision. Survivable injury. The guard lived. If the intention was murder, there's no reason a trained shooter would leave that outcome to chance. Symbolic timing. 2 days after Kendrick drops a song with Drake's mansion on the cover art. That's as personal as it gets in rap beef. Here's where it gets deeper. There are old alliances and rivalries on the West Coast that predate Kendrick's fame. Some of those ties stretch into the music industry through managers, promoters, and security firms. And Dave Free, he's been in Kendrick's orbit since the TDE days, long before PGLANG. That means he's worked with and possibly still knows people from those older circles. Now there's no proof Dave Free or J-Rock made any call about the shooting. But feds know the value of questioning people close to the alleged target. They're looking at possible facilitators, people who wouldn't get their hands dirty but might open a door for someone who would. When Mob James said Drake probably couldn't come back to certain parts of Compton without tension, it wasn't a death threat, it was a reality check. In his world, old grudges don't disappear just because the cameras do. And if you factor in how publicly Drake's been coming at Kendrick, the perception in certain neighborhoods could be that he's disrespected the wrong person. Combine that with a federal case already sniffing around Kendrick's camp, that's a recipe for agents to connect dots even if some of those dots are just in theory right now. By now, it's clear Drake isn't just fighting Kendrick in the booth. He's fighting him in courtrooms, corporate offices, and maybe even in the streets. The lawsuits and subpoenas aren't random. They're strategic pressure points aimed at forcing Kendrick's camp to slip up. Drake's legal team isn't just asking for streaming records. They're digging into domestic violence allegations involving Kendrick and his fiancée Whitney Alford, paternity documents to prove he's the father of his kids, and any dirt involving Dave Free's role in Kendrick's personal and professional life. If you look at it like a chess game, every one of those requests is a move designed to either find legal leverage against Kendrick or force someone in his circle to break loyalty and talk. Drake knows UMG doesn't want their CEO, Lucian Grange, dragged into discovery for a hip-hop beef. The bigger that part of the case gets, the more pressure Grange might put on Kendrick's team to settle or to cooperate. And if that cooperation happens under federal investigation, that's where names get named. Here's the part most people miss. Drake's legal play could be bait. By filing for domestic violence records, paternity proof, and corporate comms all at once, he's not just looking for court wins. He's testing how Kendrick's team reacts under sudden, sustained pressure. Because in high-profile disputes, how someone reacts can tell you more than any leaked text ever could. If a phone goes dark, if a flight gets booked last minute, if someone suddenly lawyers up after months of moving freely, those are signals. And yes, investigators pay attention to those signals. From the outside, this might just look like another messy rap feud. But from a federal perspective, you've got a high-profile shooting, alleged corporate manipulation of music charts, legal motions hinting at domestic abuse and fraud, and possible West Coast Toronto travel overlaps. That's a cocktail that can justify months of quiet surveillance without anyone being formally charged. But if there's one thing history's taught us about the feds, it's that they don't knock on your door unless they're already holding half the evidence, which makes the next step the possibility of sealed indictments, the part nobody in Kendrick's camp wants to think about. If you talk to certain legal insiders watching this case, they'll tell you straight, sealed indictments aren't a rumor, they're a possibility. Why? Because when the feds think a public target might run, tamper with evidence, or trigger street retaliation, they don't announce charges right away. They lock them down under seal, keep building, and then make the arrest when it'll sting the most. And if you think that sounds far-fetched, remember we've seen this exact playbook in other celebrity-adjacent cases where a shooting was just one thread in a much bigger conspiracy. If indictments exist, the most brutal moment to unseal them would be right before Kendrick's next major drop or tour announcement. Imagine the PR damage if federal headlines hit the same week as a PG Lang rollout. That's the kind of pressure that makes even the most loyal affiliates start negotiating deals. And in Drake's case, that timing could be a tactical nuke. His legal filings, his subpoenas, his media moves, they could all be setting the stage for a moment where Kendrick's circle is forced to respond while under federal heat. Mob James, after those initial comments, has gone quiet. No interviews, no new quotes. Nothing. In federal cases, sudden silence can mean one of two things. Either someone's laying low to avoid fueling rumors, or they've been told not to speak. If it's the latter, that means the circle of people under active questioning is tighter than we think. And that's when you start wondering if J-Rock's trolling, Dave Free's positioning, and Lucian Grange's withheld emails are all part of the same puzzle the feds are already putting together. If this really is moving towards sealed charges, it won't just be another rap beef headline. It'll be the kind of case that rewrites how music industry feuds are handled when real-world violence crosses the line. But the real question is, when the truth finally drops, will it clear Kendrick's camp completely, or will we find out this beef was covering up something much darker all along?